Welcome. I'm Tracy Smith, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. Jane Pauley recently sat down with a pretty famous pretty woman who's also a knitter, Julia Roberts.
An avid knitter on the set during downtime, as you can see here.
Adept in domestic arts, Roberts learned how to knit on a movie set 30 years ago.
We call it our lonely meters. How lonely were you last night? I'm like, pull out like this much knitting. Look how lonely I was. And yeah, I've been knitting ever since.
I brought my knitting.
I cannot wait to see this.
To call it my knitting is a stretch.
Ooh, you've got a little tight stitch here. Wow, Jane Pauley, tight knitter. That's how people are going to talk about you now. Do you know what a tight knitter Jane Pauley is?
There's more from their chat coming up a little later in the show.
You're Julia Roberts. That's its own thing. You're a homemaker, you raise your kids, they're normal, they go to school, and you go to a PTA meeting, and you're still Julia Roberts. Mm-hmm. How have you finessed that?
Well, first of all, it is the grace of others energetically that allows you to be how you want to represent yourself. Like, I do rely on those around me to treat me like a parent as opposed to something else, right? So I'm relying on that. I don't know. It's not a trick. It's not hard. I think that people receive you the way that you present yourself.
Then Nancy Giles with the story of an indescribable soda worthy of celebration.
Moxie actually outsold Coca-Cola nationally in the 1920s.
And gave us a new word.
The word Moxie is in the English language, meaning pluck and verve and strength. Few people know that that word came from the drink.
And a Moxie boy.
That's the guy that points.
Yeah, the guy that points, and he's got dark eyes, and he's pointing at you, said, "Drink my Moxie or I'll kill you."
And if the Moxie boy looks familiar, according to Moxie lore, this iconic World War I poster
was designed from the Moxie boy.
Seriously?
Seriously.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. It's hard to label Julia Roberts as just one thing: Hollywood royalty, Oscar winner, fashion icon. But as Jane Pauley found out, her most preferred title is Mom.
Julia Roberts is a beautiful woman. She was People magazine's most beautiful woman in the world, a record 5 times. But at Smyrna, Georgia's Campbell High School,
Oh, Miss Panthera.
not even a runner-up.
I have to say, the pinnacle of my looks was that one moment.
After graduation in 1985, she followed her sister Lisa, an aspiring actor, to New York City. Their older brother, Eric Roberts, was already established. But acting wasn't her plan. She sold running shoes.
I was a quick lacer. I was really good at lacing.
And yet, what happened?
Well, I was walking down the street. This is the truth.
This story begins with, I was walking down the street.
I was walking down the street with my brother and his then girlfriend and passed someone that they knew, and that person was a talent agent.
Daisy!
No more selling shoes.
Think we might get that pizza served while it's still hot? I think maybe.
Julia Roberts was waiting tables in Mystic Pizza, a low-budget film that's become a cult classic.
We are hateful, awful people. Here, all we've been talking about is weddings and psychotic animals.
The newcomer in the stellar cast of Steel Magnolias. But 1990 was a different story. An unlikely story made Julia Roberts, who's never had an acting class, a star.
You got the part of the drug-addicted prostitute who has a relationship with a very rich man.
And the end of the movie was him stopping the car, opening the passenger door, basically pushing her out into the street and driving away.
Good on you for getting that part.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pretty grim stuff. And then the studio went bust.
I think over the course of a weekend, I didn't have a job. And then about a week later, they said, oh, the script was sold to Disney.
Disney?
Yeah, right?
with Gary Marshall, known for Family Fare, The Odd Couple, and Happy Days, directing. He didn't see Roberts in the part, but as a courtesy, he did see her.
And he goes, "What's the story with you? Some people say you can't dress her up. Some people say you can't dress her down. I don't know what it is." I said, "I don't know what it is."
It was a perfect fit, is what it was. And that dress is one of the most iconic in film.
Did you enjoy the opera, dear? Oh, it was so good, I almost peed my pants.
What?
Julia Roberts.
In 2001, Julia Roberts won Best Actress for Erin Brockovich. And might have won for Best Dress, too.
I love it up here. You turned up in a vintage Valentino.
It was a beautiful dress that I tried on the Saturday before the Sunday of the Oscars for the first time. We didn't do anything to it. It fit perfectly.
And she put it away.
My daughter was digging through the closet looking for possible prom dresses last spring. Was like, "What's this dress?" And I said, "Well, try it on." It was too big for her, but she looked so lovely. And
your daughter didn't know that that was her mother's Oscar?
I don't think she did.
She has 3 children with her husband of 20 years, Daniel Moder.
I always think that they all look like me, and then Danny comes home from work, and I go, "Oh, that's who they look like."
Moder is a cinematographer whose film was premiering at Cannes. He took their daughter.
She is a one-of-a-kind, that girl. I mean, we were FaceTiming, actually, right before they went out, and she was laying on the bed, and I said, "What time is there? What are you guys doing?" He goes, "Oh, Dad's, just putting his tie on. We're getting ready to go." And I said, "Oh, are you ready?" "Yeah." Like, she didn't really look ready to me. Ponytail, and I was like, "Little eyeliner?" She was like, "I didn't bring eyeliner, Mom. What are you talking about?" I was like, "Okay, yeah, I mean, eyeliner. Who needs eyeliner? Just can." I mean, it's just sweet, just the innocence. She's just with her dad. It's not about anything else.
What are you doing?
You said this was your last job, Jerry.
The couple first met on the set of The Mexican. Brad Pitt was her co-star.
I was watching knowing that you might at that time been crushing on one of the guys behind the camera.
Yeah. I think he and Brad were crushing on each other. I felt like I was constantly interrupting their conversations because they would sit there and they would be talking about music, and I'd be like, "Oh, I like that song."
Today, she says her career and family are both important, but not equally so.
It's just never consumed me, being an actor. It is my dream come true, but it is not my only dream come true.
What are the other dreams?
The life that I've built with my husband, the life that we've built with our children, and that's the best stuff, to come home at the end of the day triumphantly to them. Excuse me, ma'am, I need to sit somewhere else.
I'm sorry, it's a full flight.
We used to be married.
The worst 19 years of my life.
We were only married for 5.
I'm counting the recovery.
For the first time in 20 years, she's starring in a romantic comedy. Reunited with longtime friend George Clooney, Ticket to Paradise was shot on location in Australia. It was the longest she'd ever been away from her family.
62 days. I wrote a lot of letters.
You could probably have sent emails pretty quickly.
Yeah, but that's kind of boring, and you don't get the cool stamps, and it's something Danny and I have always done. The first letter he ever wrote me, which was 7 pages long, I still have it tucked away. One day I'll show it to Hazel and say, "That's what you're looking for."
An avid knitter on the set during downtime, as you can see here.
Adept in domestic arts, Roberts learned how to knit on a movie set 30 years ago.
We call it our lonely meters. How lonely were you last night? And I'm pull out this much knitting. Look how lonely I was. And yeah, I've been knitting ever since.
I brought my knitting.
I cannot wait to see this.
To call it my knitting is a stretch.
Ooh, you've got a little tight stitch here. Wow, Jane Pauley, tight knitter. That's how people are going to talk about you now. Do you know what a tight knitter Jane Pauley is?
You describe yourself as a homemaker.
When I'm not working, that is my full-time job. And it isn't, rainbows and kittens every day, but it does bring me a lot of joy.
And you do breakfast before school?
I love breakfast. It's my favorite meal. My younger boy, Henry, he's my breakfast partner.
Am I right in thinking that Jane Pauley might be standing in the way of you getting home to your family?
Yeah.
Because you've got to get home, I presume, for breakfast in the morning for Henry.
Yeah.
Yes.
We love our breakfast.
More exclusive excerpts from their conversation coming up a little later in the show. But up next, the most famous soft drink you might never have heard of. It's a soft drink that inspired a word, and in Maine, an annual celebration. Here's Nancy Giles.
There's Coke, there's Pepsi, there's 7-Up. But in the state of Maine, the soft drink they celebrate is Moxie.
Moxie actually outsold Coca-Cola nationally in the 1920s.
And gave us a new word.
The word Moxie is in the English language, meaning pluck and verve and strength. Few people know that that word came from the drink.
Merrill Lewis enjoys spreading the word about his favorite drink at the Moxie Museum in Union, Maine, birthplace of Dr. Augustine Thompson, who began selling his Moxie nerve food in Lowell, Massachusetts in 1885.
What were some of the claims of things that it could cure?
Well, it could cure nervous exhaustion, loss of manhood, imbecility. I like to say everything from halitosis to hangnail.
Moxie was actually the Viagra of its day. Who
knew?
Jim Baumer wrote the book on Moxie.
Moxie's real sort of heyday was early 1900s. Every major city in America had a large billboard about Moxie. Sides of buildings with the Moxie logo with these advertisements that were painted on the building. You had Moxie in magazines. Wherever there was a marketing sort of presence, Moxie jumped in and was part of that.
It was a marketing blitz unheard of at the time. Moxie songs, celebrity endorsements, a Moxie game, Moxie candy, something called a Moxie horsemobile.
That is a horse mounted on a car chassis that somebody sat on and drove around the country.
And a Moxie boy.
That's the guy that points.
The guy that points, and he's got dark eyes, and he's pointing at you, said, "Drink my Moxie or I'll kill you."
And if the Moxie boy looks familiar, according to Moxie lore, this iconic World War I poster
was designed from the Moxie boy.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Every summer, with a 2-year break for COVID, folks from all over have gathered in Lisbon Falls, Maine to celebrate Moxie with parades.
You've got Moxie.
Bake-offs.
You need to have as much Moxie as possible.
Moxie memorabilia. And Moxie ice cream.
Good. If you drink Moxie, you have Moxie. And you have Moxie if you drink Moxie.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
By now, you're probably wondering what Moxie tastes like. Well, it's kind of hard to describe, but that doesn't stop anyone from trying.
Not real sweet, but very good. Sort of like root beer and Coca-Cola and coffee all together, and you mix it up, and it's good warm, cold.
It tastes like a rugged root beer.
I personally think it tastes like a little bit of flat root beer, a little bit of flat Pepsi, mixed with a little drop of cough syrup.
So there you have it, a soft drink that inspired a word. And, according to Moxie enthusiasts, might be just what we need today.
What this country needs is plenty of Moxie, and it does.
When you were growing up, did you have big dreams of the movies?
We'll have more from Jane Pauley and Julia Roberts coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. As promised, here's more with Julia Roberts.
So in Smyrna, you grow up, your parents are in the arts, have an acting school. And I've only learned this morning that Martin Luther King, his children attended your parents' acting school.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, Coretta Scott King paid for the hospital bills for the birth of you.
Of me, yeah. I know. They were friends with my parents, and it was just friends helping friends at a time in need. Yeah, but amazing, isn't it? Isn't it funny?
I don't have any kind of story like that.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's a good story.
When you were growing up, did you have big dreams of the movies?
No. I mean, I think my parents were more theater-oriented, and I saw it as something separate from myself, and it was more about my parents, and my dad was a writer, but then ultimately their dreams, their artistic dreams, I should say, kind of crumbled. And my dad ended up as a vacuum cleaner salesman, and my mom was a secretary. So in those terms, I don't think I was ever seeing myself as growing up to be an artist, but when that's kind of part of how it goes, it doesn't seem like something to attempt.
You are one of the most articulate people I know of, and there are quotable things. You can find quotable anything online, of course, but to choose from the array of rather marvelous things that has come out of your mouth over the years. One of my favorite had to do with where you say, and now I have earned this, quote, jewel box of a life. That's so beautiful. And that jewel box, what does it look like and what's in it?
Well, I remember when I said that was when Finn and Hazel were born, and at that time I think I had worked for about 18 years pretty consistently, and have seen friends of mine have kids and have to go back to work, and they're in a utility closet at their office pumping breast milk, and and I've seen that level of ethic and exhaustion, and I was so grateful and felt so comfortable acknowledging the luxury of being able to just say, I'm putting this aside for now because there's this moment that will never come again where I will never be a parent for the first time again. And I had so much gratitude for that luxury and really felt that I had a responsibility to just surrender to that.
You're Julia Roberts. That's its own thing. You're a homemaker, you raise your kids, they're normal, they go to school, and you go to a PTA meeting, and you're still Julia Roberts. How have you finessed that?
Well, first of all, it is the grace of others energetically that allows you to be how you want to represent yourself. Like I do rely on those around me to treat me like a parent as opposed to something else, right? So I'm relying on that. I don't know. It's not a trick. It's not hard. I think that people receive you the way that you present yourself, whether it's at a PTA meeting or at a soccer game, or I'm not dressed like this. My hair doesn't look like this. Sadly, none of me looks like this at a soccer game.
You're a soccer mom.
Yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's what I will miss the most when all my kids are out of high school is going to soccer games.
There will be new stuff that you will also really like.
There will be us knitting.
Do you like rocking chairs?
I do. I mean, but listen, we can't age ourselves prematurely here, Jane. This cannot happen. The two of us in rocking chairs with knitting, that's beyond the pale.
I was once called on the carpet, literally, because I was carpeted. Nice guy, but called on the carpet and told to stop calling myself middle-aged. And I was in my 30s.
30s is not middle-aged.
It was close enough.
You're middle-aged now.
I don't know. I guess I was practicing, for being. I had to look at this.
I'm going to call you my middle-aged friend, Jane Pauley.
You can say Jane is aging so well.
Beautifully.
Not really well.
Beautifully. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, okay. So
you need to get a grip, Jane. You do not realize what a goddess you are, inside and out, in the way people see you. CBS Sunday Morning, every Sunday, people are at home, loving you, relying on you, counting on you to be reassuring, to be smart, to be loving, and frankly, to be gorgeous.
I didn't hear a thing you said after goddess. But thank you. I know you kept talking, saying wonderful things.
I think it's been recorded. They'll play it back for you.
I'm Tracy Smith. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Here Comes the Sun.